to Jesus I surrender. All to Him I freely give. I will ever love and trust Him in His presence daily listen. I surrender all. I surrender all to Thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all. Sing, I surrender. I surrender all. I surrender all. Sing, Jesus. All to Thee, my blessed Savior, I surrender all. Maybe some of you have expressed concern about the surgical procedure I'm supposed to have on Tuesday. Please know that I am not concerned. In my mind, there's really nothing to be concerned about. It is just a basal spot on my face near my ear. I don't know what kind of bandages I'm going to have next week, so it'll be interesting. I don't know what my face will look like next week, if it'll be bruised or messed up or anything. I don't know. So it might actually be an improvement over what you get to see today. So who knows what you'll see. But we'll see what we come up with. I'm not concerned. Basal cells don't kill people. Basal cancers don't kill people typically. There's no life-threatening thing going on here. But it will continue to eat away at my face if I don't get it removed. Now, the length of the procedure is all dependent on the depth of the cancer, because basal cells, by the time we find out about them, they're shaped like a pyramid. And when they hit the surface, they're much bigger underneath the surface. So what I see is only a small portion of what it is that the doctors know is there. So the length of the procedure could be 2 hours, could be 4 hours, could be 6 hours, but they keep cutting away as little as possible until their tests show that the skin is completely clean. So that's kind of where we're at. And so once the surgery is over, I'll give Sherry a call and she'll send out an email to let you know I am still alive, and I'll post it on Facebook, or my wife will post it on Facebook or something. But so just keep an eye on Facebook if you're overly concerned, but please don't be overly concerned. I'm not. It's no big deal. We do thank you for your prayers and concern, though. Matthew chapter 21. Awesome passage. Matthew chapter 21, verse 1. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, tell him that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. "Say to the daughter of Zion, see, your king comes to you gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt, placed their cloaks on them, and Jesus sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." Father, help us to hear you call our name as you take this trip to Calvary. In Jesus' name, amen. Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. He had pretty much done everything he was supposed to do. Pretty much. I mean, there was this one last thing. We know it as the cross. Jesus was almost done with his work on this planet. He had almost fulfilled everything the Father had told him to do, and yet there was this one thing left. I have to go to Jerusalem one last time. And a cross is waiting for me at the end of the week. So Jesus heads that direction. As he's approaching Jerusalem, he sends two of his disciples just a little ways away, and he tells them, okay guys, you're going to find a donkey. Actually, you're going to find a colt, the foal of a donkey, that is tied up. This animal has never been ridden before. I want you to untie it. If anyone asks you what you're doing, just tell them what's going on. They'll let you bring it to me. I'm going to ride this animal into Jerusalem. So they go and find the donkey, and the disciples take off their coats, put it on the donkey. Jesus gets on this colt, and they ride into Jerusalem while all these people are cheering, and they're taking off their coats, putting palm branches on the ground, and Jesus on this colt goes riding into town. Everybody is cheering. Everybody is excited. Could this be the next prophet from Nazareth in Galilee? Could Jesus be the one that we've been waiting for? Everybody's cheering. Everybody's all excited. There's great fanfare and celebration in town. As I approached this text this week, I was haunted by all these Johannine passages that we've read recently, because they keep saying, do you have eyes to see? Do you have ears to hear? Are you able to grasp what it is that I'm trying to tell you? So I approached Matthew's passage here in chapter 21, and I said, Lord, I really would like to see what it is that you see here in this passage. I'd like to come to a new understanding of this passage. You see, there are some passages that a pastor has to preach from every year. This is one of them. Every year I have 11 verses to pick from, and I got to do it again next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. So I want to find something new here. And I think I did. At least it's new to me. It may not be new to you, but it was a new revelation to me as I looked at this Matthew passage. I began to look for where it is that might be something new, where something new might be coming from. And so I turned my attention to the disciples. Could I learn something from the disciples here? And so I look at this story, and I'm amazed by what it is that's going on here, because these two disciples get sent to town to find this colt. I imagine while they're on their way, they consider this passage from the prophet. See, your king comes to you. Jesus must have changed his mind. Because all along, we know that Jesus is resisting our attempts, and the culture at large's attempt to try to set him up as king. Jesus seems to be resisting people's attempt to set him up on this throne. And Jesus keeps fighting us with this, but Zechariah is very clear here. See, your king comes riding to you on a colt. So maybe Jesus has finally come to his senses, and he's going to kick these Romans out of town. He's going to set up new rule, and Jesus is going to be the king. And guess what? We get to be the rulers of Jerusalem. Because he's going to need help. Jesus can't rule by himself. And we're his right-hand man. We're his left-hand man. We're his disciples. And if Jesus is going to need help ruling, where's he going to go? He's going to go to us. Now, of course, all of this is with noble intention and pure heart and pure motive. All of this must be right. I mean, surely they were thinking only of the Jews who had been in bondage for so many years, right? Surely they were thinking only of freedom from the tyranny of Roman taxation. Surely they had to have been thinking about the tyranny of Roman oppression as they put people up on the cross. Surely they had everybody else in their mind. They only cared about everybody else. They had no thought or concern for themselves. Or did they? If we look backwards in the text, if we look forward in the text, I'm not sure, folks, that their motives were that pure. You see, if I look at the text, I come to discover that they had already had a fight about who's going to sit on Jesus' right and left whenever he sets up his throne. They had already tried to figure out who gets to be Jesus' right-hand man and left-hand man whenever he sits on the throne that currently is occupied by a Roman. And we also know that as soon as they came to realize that Jesus didn't want to fight, in fact, whenever one of the disciples cut off a man's ear, Jesus picks it up and puts it back on the man's face and heals him. When they realized Jesus isn't interested in picking a fight with the Romans, Jesus isn't interested in setting up this kingship like they thought he was interested in. As soon as they found out Jesus wanted them to lay down their swords, what do? They run away. They scatter. They get as far away from Jesus as they can. For them, at this moment, following Jesus on this road to Jerusalem was all about finding their lottery ticket and cashing that bad boy in. Jesus is the way to get what I want. You see, Jesus is the way to the Father, and the Father can do whatever it is he wants to do, and Jesus can do whatever he wants to do in the will of the Father. So if I follow Jesus, maybe I'll win the lottery. Maybe I'll get set up in this new rule. Maybe I'll get everything I ever wanted to get and more. And whenever they found out that all of this thinking led to a cross, they ran away. I wonder if in the last 2,000 years if we've learned very much. I wonder if in the last 2,000 years if there still might be Christians that are in a church today, maybe even ours, that are here because Jesus is like a lottery ticket to us. If I just follow Jesus, I can get what I want. If I just follow Jesus, he'll do what I want in prayer. If I just follow Jesus, I'm going to get a better job. If I follow Jesus when I'm sick, I'm going to get better. If I follow Jesus, everything that I want to have happen is going to take place. Well, there's a reason why I discourage people to play the lottery, because if you lose in the lottery, you lose money, and if you win the lottery, you still lose. And it's no different in spiritual places either. If you think Jesus is your lottery ticket to everything that you want in life, it's a dangerous game. It's a dangerous game because, folks, what happens if Jesus doesn't do what you want him to do? What happens if there's a cross on the horizon? What happens in your spiritual life if Jesus is just this lottery ticket to scratch off so I can hope I get what I want? There's a cross at the end of this road to Jerusalem. And as long as the disciples did not wrestle with this cross that was at the end of the road, they did not have peace, they did not have hope, they did not have joy. So I look at these disciples and I wonder, am I getting anything there? Well, the answer for me is no. So I look at the crowd. These folks were really excited. I was listening to the Fish on the way into church this morning, and they played that song, "Take the Shackles Off My Feet So I Can Dance," you know. And I thought about doing a little Nazarene dance for you, you know, but I figured I would embarrass myself and my family, so I thought against it. You know, that's kind of what was going on that day. They were singing that song as Jesus was walking down the road, and they were cheering. And there was a cultural impetus here that you need to be aware of. You see, anytime somebody took off their coat and they threw it down in front of somebody to let that individual walk over it, it was a sign that the person that's walking over that coat is a person that you are submitting to.